live, but
Okay, here we go.
Interesting.
all right. Unfortunately, we're not able to go live right now. So I'm just going to send a little message here to the folks that usually join us. I don't know what's happening. I know there was an update recently, and sometimes that does it.
Computers say thousands of hours and then they take a couple of hundred.
Yeah. Yep. That's one that's over 300 years old.
All right. Well, let's sing anyway.
All right.
We'll do that.
Shine, Jesus, shine. Lord, the light of your love is shining in the midst of the darkness shining. Jesus, light of the world, shine upon us. Set us free by the truth you now bring us. Shine on me. Shine on me. Shine, Jesus, shine. Fill this land with the Father's glory. Blaze, Spirit, blaze. Set our hearts on fire. Flow, river, flow. Flood the nations with grace and mercy. Send forth your word, Lord, and let there be light. Lord, I come to your awesome presence from the shadows into your radiance. By the blood I may enter your brightness. Search me, try me, consume all my darkness. Shine on me. Shine on me. Shine, Jesus, shine. Fill this land with the Father's glory. Blaze, Spirit, blaze. Set our hearts on fire. Flow, river, flow. Flood the nations with grace and mercy. Send forth your word, Lord, and let there be light. As we gaze on your kindly brightness, so our faces display your likeness, ever changing from glory to glory. Nearer, dear, may our lives tell your story. Shine on me. Shine on me. Shine, Jesus, shine. Fill this land with the Father's glory. Blaze, Spirit, blaze. Set our hearts on fire. Flow, river, flow. Flood the nations with grace and mercy. Send forth your word, Lord, and let there be light. Let's pray. God, thank you for shining in our lives. Thank you for the story and the presence of Jesus. Thank you for your Holy Spirit, and be with us as we study your word and consider our relationship with you and one another. Thank you for being here with us today. We pray in your name. Amen.
Amen.
All right. So I think that's the first time we haven't been able to live stream.
Yeah.
But I'll have to find out what happened. So some things were working and some things weren't. So we are going to pick up. Unfortunately, because of that, I'm recording it, and I'll be able to send it to folks that are not able to join us in person at this moment. And but one of the downsides is I won't be able to show those of you watching the video what we're reading on the screen. You'll just have to kind of listen.
Can I get,
Yes.
when I had to watch this on YouTube, and I noticed you didn't have my name, how are the people who you know are watching, how do they go to see the Bible study live?
They use Facebook.
Is that on the way you go through your newsletter on Friday? Is what's on the bottom there?
On the bottom of the newsletter, you should have links to Facebook, to YouTube, and maybe to the website. Yeah. So you can watch live on Facebook. You can watch live on YouTube. You can watch live by going to the website as well, when it works.
Well, I watched YouTube, and I always did, and you didn't know I was there. We always read a lot of people who were watching it. I was wondering where they were getting in on it. But I then went down to the bottom of the newsletter, and you had Bible study, so I clicked on that. I don't know where it sent me.
Okay. You were watching during the 10 o'clock hour?
Well, after I saw you didn't know I was there, I was trying to.
Okay. There's, sometimes I have the Facebook comments on the screen here. I do have a way on here, if I tap the right button, where I can also see YouTube comments.
Well, I
But,
didn't even comment, I'm gonna go where
I don't,
everybody else goes.
did you make a comment or you didn't?
I did not.
Okay, so I can only see the people. If you make a comment, that's the only way I can see your name, even on Facebook.
Because I saw, you read a lot of people's names in the beginning.
That's because they had made comments on Facebook already.
Oh.
Yeah. If they said hello or whatever. Yeah. That's
This is a place I don't know.
It's a learning process. It's a learning process, and
This morning is evident.
it's constantly changing too.
Yeah.
There's always an update and an upgrade, and staying on top of it is a challenge. It is, it's fortunate. I just happen to have an interest in technology, and so that's been of benefit to be able to use it in churches. But what happens is, like, as we're moving forward, being connected on the internet is so much more important than it used to be, that the churches that are not able to catch up and do it are probably going to be left behind. So I was talking with Ian. He's a freshman in college, and he's declared his major is going to be computer science.
Good.
But computer science is a very broad degree. And we were talking about how it's possible that moving forward, no matter what field you go into, you kind of need to have a computer background to make it work.
Just to fill out a resume nowadays.
Right.
To me, it seems like in the computer age, none of us can be arrogant because we know how much we don't know. Even my husband's been writing software since 1978.
Yeah.
Took it in college in the 60s. But
Wow.
computers today are nothing like what he had then. Every 5 years he has to relearn everything. You're never wise like the old carpenter.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like if you imagine a group of people starting a running race, and the computer takes off. Computer is one of the people. If you try to catch that person, it's like if you waited for the computer to get ahead of you before you even started the race, then it's going to be hard to catch up. And then the problem is the computer person is running faster and faster and faster as the race goes on. So it's harder and harder to catch up. So, yeah, well, that's where we are. So we're going to pick up where we left off. We're going to go ahead and read through each paragraph like we were before. We are in step 8. So we are, let me go back and read the right words. We're making a list of the people we've harmed, and we're becoming willing to make amends to them all. So we've already started the process of considering our faults, and now we're looking at how our faults have impacted people around us. And so that's part of step 8. Another part of step 8 is to become willing to make amends to those people if the opportunity is there. So we're going to start in with the paragraph that begins, our family, friends, and enemies. Our family, friends, and enemies, however, are not as kind or patient as God. They need a clear accounting to be free and go ahead with their lives. Often they just need to talk it through, hear our understanding, and maybe our sincere apology. Usually they need to offer their understanding of the situation and how it hurt them. Neither side needs to accuse or defend, but just state the facts as we remember them and be open to hear what the other needed, heard, or felt. It has developed into a true art form, and some rightly call it redemptive listening or nonviolent communication. Knowing we were not taught nonviolent communication at the personal level, is it any surprise that we did not have the skills at the national, cultural, or church levels? So this is a paragraph about the process of making amends. To know what you're, if we're asking ourselves, are we willing to make amends? The next question might be, what does that look like? What does it mean to make amends? And so this is talking about how when we're asking for forgiveness or when we're trying to make amends with somebody that we've hurt, what we're doing is we're going back in time and we're kind of replaying the events as we experience them. And then we are open to listen to the person that we may have hurt to hear their experience of what took place. So some of the reasons why we make amends is, one is for us, which is, let's just start with that. We carry the burdens of our guilt of hurting other people in different ways. In some ways, we may not be fully aware of how we've hurt other people until we enter into a conversation with somebody. Not everybody is going to come to us right away after we've hurt them. Not everybody's going to say something right when it happens. Some people may be hurt and not even realize in the moment that they're being hurt until later on. Then they're like, wait a minute, I don't really like what she said to me. Or, wait a minute, what he did to me, that wasn't right. So what we're doing here in making amends is we're broadening, hopefully we're broadening our awareness of the impact that we have on each other. And we're saying to ourselves, this is important for us to be aware of. Not only it is important for me, but because I want to live my life in the best way possible as God has created me to live this life. So I don't want to go through this life being completely self-centered and not caring or being aware of the people around me. We can do that. The term we use for that is narcissist or egocentric or egomaniac or whatever. This is going to be somebody who is so self-centered that they either don't care or more likely are not aware or care to be aware of how they are impacting the people around them. And we've probably all been that to some degree. We've all been that way to some degree. And mature growth and a higher and better way to view life is to step out of that egocentric way of viewing things. I mentioned on Sunday the terms ethnocentric and global-centric, or world-centric. So those are two ways to view the world. Before we even can view the world in an ethnocentric way, we're viewing it in an egocentric way. And this is how we come into the world. We're born into this world egocentric.
Egocentric is self.
We're focused on ourselves. So there's studies that have shown that babies that are born cannot tell the difference between themselves and the world around them. To them, what they are experiencing is themselves. So there's this attachment to mom, to lights, to noises, to the child that's born. This is, I'm just experiencing me. It's just me. All this is just me. And eventually, there comes a place where that starts to break apart. This might be connected to what we call the terrible twos, is when there's this beginning of awareness.
Self-awareness.
It's an awareness that the world around me is not cooperating with what I want. There's this separation between. So this is where the temper tantrums will come in, where it's like the world is not doing what I want it to do. And normally, and up to that point, if you think about it, the baby's been so dependent and everybody's so concerned about the baby that, yes, as soon as they go, everybody's like, whoa, oh, what can we do? What can we do? You know? And then magically, to the baby's point of view, everything just magically happens. If I'm a little uncomfortable, I get fed, or I get a diaper change, or I get rocked, or I go to sleep, or I wake up, or everything is all about me. And then when we get to the place where there's a need to kind of, we can't live like this forever, baby. The baby has to learn how to do things on their own. As this begins, they start to realize, wait a minute, this is not all happening magically. This is not all me. I can't just think it and it happens. And so that becomes frustrating. And so that's where kind of the tantrums come in. And then gradually, if we think about like our adolescent years, that's kind of when there's an even broader awareness that I am very separate and very different from everybody around me, and everybody's looking at me, and they're judging me, and they're comparing me, and so this makes me feel, really self-aware. And it can do. I remember seeing Ian change. Ian was very kind of outspoken, outgoing, and spontaneous. And when he started to become self-aware, he started becoming more shy. He started gauging: do I want to say something? Do I want to do something? Kind of thinking about his steps before he takes them.
It's always fun when we're in a store. Sometime Carol will always go up and see the baby. And there's always that certain age level where you come over and hi, how are you? You want to do something, and the kid will look at you like, you can see me, and then they don't know quite what to do with someone coming over and interacting with them without them saying, come see me.
Right.
And it's always funny because they really think they're invisible.
Okay,
And,
yeah.
Early it starts. My children were only a year apart. So that means my son was only 1 year old when the second one was born.
Mm-hmm.
And he came and he said to me, why did you have him? You don't need him.
Uh-huh.
Who had me?
Yeah.
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Well, I have a cousin, 1 year old.
Yeah.
I have a cousin.
Go ahead.
hated her sister so much, she wanted to throw her out the window into a garbage can.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like,
You
Same
and
thing,
the
you're really
and the
close to
child
God.
will see themselves in the other person and realize, like, I was treated like this and now I'm not being treated like that, you know. And so, yeah. What were you gonna say, Sandra?
Oh, I have my little story too. Our 3-year-old wanted a grandma to play Barbies with her, and she wanted the Barbies to take a shower, and she was saying to her grandmother, "Otter, otter, otter." I don't understand. The grandma was saying, "I don't understand," and she finally got so angry. She got the 3-year-old, not the grandmother, got up, ran into the bathroom, slammed the door, and locked it.
oh,
And then Grandma had to go say, "Well, what's the matter? Why are you so angry?" And she said, "I'm not angry. You're angry at me because I couldn't say words that you could understand."
Oh, jeez.
And I thought, wow, that is so confused. And she unlocked the door and came out and she said, Grandma, you weren't mad at me." And she said, "No, I wasn't."
Right.
So I thought that was a great projection story. That
Yeah.
Yeah.
you didn't realize at 3 years old you always got it.
Well, that shows an awareness that there is another person having an experience like I'm having. So they're having emotions,
Yeah.
and they're seeing things, and they're judging things. So it's a fascinating process that we go through. And so when it comes to forgiveness, this is a practice that gives us the opportunity to acknowledge the perspective of another person, the experience of another person, the value of another person. And at the same time, we are also revalidating ourselves, because what we're saying is, my experience is important, and my feelings are important, and my perspective and my thoughts are important. And because I'm a human being, because I'm a child of God, because that's the way it is. And to acknowledge that is the case for other people as well is where this will help us all to live together in a better way. But it is easy, just like in every stage, it's easy to stay in the previous stage of development. You know, it's easier just to lay there and have everything brought to you, you know, and be completely dependent. And so we can kind of think how...
That's called potty training.
Yeah, right. So there is this thing of like, yeah, it's nice to have everything brought to you, but if you kind of wake up, you'd realize, look at what you're doing to the people around you. You're making them use their time, their effort, their energy, and their own time as a person, their own life, to take care of you. So hopefully when that awareness comes, there's some gratitude, there's some compassion, and there's this thing of saying like, okay, well, I guess we all have to kind of work together, because we're all going to be at different stages at different times. We come into this world dependent, we go out of this world dependent, and in the middle we have some independence or interdependence. And so working through it, making amends to one another, is a part of having a life of peace and love and freedom. And so this is what we're doing here. So it's first of all, God is patient with us. That's kind of what this first sentence is telling us. God is patient with us. So that's a good place to start. That's a good reminder. God is patient with the infant, the 2-year-old, the adolescent, the young adult, the older adult. God is patient. Every stage has its blessings. Every stage has its challenges. And so God is patient and there to help us experience the most out of those different stages. Family, friends, and enemies, however, are not as patient. So this is where, because we're not so patient with one another, we kind of have to cultivate compassion. We have to cultivate understanding in ourselves to help kind of spread that around and encourage patience in one another.
I have actually learned also, not just being loving and compassionate, that sometimes I have to have the courage to take care of myself. Like if I know people who like they'll do a soliloquy for 3-4 hours and you can't get a word in. I'm talking here. And there is a point at which I need to not be worried about it. Oh, I just want to tell something that I had going on that was similar, and of course they will not receive it, but you have to keep doing it.
Right.
Because otherwise you get a resentment towards them because they've monopolized all
Well,
this time.
well, all of this is a give and take, and we're trying to be mindful of the balance of the give and take. There's a balance there, but there's also we kind of need some wisdom to know what is appropriate in these exchanges as well. So like when we're having a conversation with someone who is kind of like on a peer level with us, they are an adult of the same age, of the same experience or whatever, we may interact with that person in a certain way. Maybe we expect at that place more of an even-handed give and take and exchange. If we're interacting with someone who's a child, we're going to expect a different type of give and take depending on where we are. But along the way, yes, we do need to be aware of ourselves, that not only are we thinking about how can we be nice to other people, but we also should be aware when people are not being considerate of us. And then we have to be on the other side of the amends here in those cases where we may have to speak up for ourselves and say, you know, excuse me, we've been having a conversation and I've been listening to you for the past 30 minutes. Do you mind if I say something too? So those are difficult at times, and those exchanges can reveal to us that we might be having a conversation with somebody who, even though they're the same age and they seem to have the same experience, their level of development may not be the same as ours. And there may be more of an egocentrism in another person. Now, in that case, when we recognize that we are dealing with somebody who truly is egocentric and sometimes they're not aware of it, and simply calling attention to something can snap them out of it. You know, somebody say, "Oh my gosh, have I been talking that long? I'm sorry, please talk." Another person may say, like, what's the big deal? I'm always the one talking.
I'm not done with my story yet.
No, I'm always the one talking. I mean, that's the way I go through my whole day. So in some cases, we do deal with people and have to relate to people that they may, let's put it this way, they're probably not going to change anytime soon.
That's right.
Okay, so there are folks like that. In that regard, we kind of shift the way that we relate, and we really, in some relationships with some people, it's not safe to be open with them.
And in some
They
cases,
won't understand, or they may take advantage of situations.
They may want to just cut your relationship off.
Yeah.
I can't talk all the time. Well, I'll go talk to this.
Oh, that's good.
Right, and so the thing is, like, they weren't really looking for a give and take relationship. They just wanted an audience. Right, and it could be anybody.
Yeah.
I actually have, over time, decades, become to be aware of being a little bit grateful for them, because it taught me as a passive person that I don't need to be passive. That's not a value. I need to be more assertive.
Okay, good.
And they taught me that.
Sure.
And they may not have liked it.
Yeah, when we see the people around us that are unbalanced, when we see other people taking advantage, when we see other people being ignorant and in their ignorance hurting other people, those are opportunities to learn.
But sometimes you get the wrong
You
answer.
just lost your screen.
I know, I consider, yeah, it's coming up.
Well, just,
They went black and they came in.
Okay.
it's one of those
Hey,
days.
I don't consider my children my even though they're kids. The oldest boy is 70-something. And I said to him, Mark, are you very compassionate? Being a doctor, I felt he wasn't. And I just asked him, and he said, Mother, I have to be compassionate, I'm a doctor. That was the wrong thing to say. Have to, it's not.
Oh, right,
No, no,
right,
no.
right,
There's a whole big difference between
Right.
I have to and I am.
right. And
And it comes across differently.
I would imagine, I can imagine a different response from a doctor. I can imagine a doctor saying, I cannot be compassionate
True.
because I'm a doctor.
True, yeah.
Because in a very different way, any of the caring professions deal with how much of your personal self are you giving in each one of these exchanges.
Yeah.
So there's something in one of the boundary training classes I took recently, it talked about I think it was compassion fatigue. So this is when we become caregivers to people around us, when we let other people play a more dependent role on us, where they're depending on us and taking our emotion, our energy, our attention. If we play a role where we're giving more than we're getting back, what we'll experience fatigue, because we need our tank filled up too. If we don't have our tank filled up with compassion and love, then we won't be able to give out. So the person like a doctor or any of the caring professions, there has to be a very controlled and measured amount of compassion giving. Because if you're seeing people in need all day long, and you're living this role and taking on this responsibility of making sure other people are okay, it has to be very carefully measured out, because if it's just freely given, you're not going to have anything left to give at some point, and you'll burn out, and you'll.
Maybe I feel a little bit better now.
Well,
Yeah, and then for any of the caring professions, you have your professional life, and then you have your personal life. So hopefully, what the caring professions are taught is, don't use all of your compassion at work, because if you have family that you're coming home to, if you're always coming home empty, you're not going to be able to share that with your family. So it's very challenging to go to work, give very measured and thoughtful but measured doses of compassion, and then come home and be able to give, hopefully with family or the friends, you're able to give more freely and not so measured. You don't really want your spouse or your kids or your parents to be very measured with their compassion with you. You want them to just
yeah.
give you too much love, you know?
That may be what started this, because months before, I was visiting and he said, his daughter got hurt, broke up thing, whatever. And he said, oh, I'll take an aspirin and go.
Yeah.
You know, there was no compassion there at all. That hurt me.
Right. Well, that's the default way of thinking and giving compassion. So it's a very little bit of compassion. It's like, you're going to be fine. That's the amount of compassion. Not completely blowing somebody off of it. Like, you'll be fine. You know, it's kind of and not sitting there like, oh, poor baby. Oh, it must hurt so
That's what I
bad.
expected.
Right. That's what you expected. And it's like, if he did that with everybody, he'd be done. He would have nothing left. He'd be done by noon, and he'd have to go to bed and refuel for the next day. You
I
can't.
know when I was a medic in the Army, and I had to take continuing education to get promotions and all that good stuff. And I had to drop out of it because it got to be where after you have a couple of patients die,
Oh, sure. Yeah.
it's you live with it. I mean,
Right.
how these nurses and doctors live with that, I don't know, but I know it would take me weeks to get over.
It's a very,
Dying.
it's a, again, it's a measured response of, and it's a controlled response of some, there is empathy and compassion and
How do you-
sadness.
How do you turn that
you know?
compassion on and off? I mean, that's the part that amazes
It's
me.
challenging.
I don't know, you know, it's
It is challenging.
something
And-
I couldn't do.
Right. Well, it would be good to have that skill of turning off and on if you're going to engage in that perspective. If you can't, and not everybody can, if you can't, then it's better maybe to avoid that. Yeah, become a mechanic.
Yeah.
You know, you don't, when a car dies, it's not so rough
Well, I tell
on
you,
you
I changed-
emotionally.
I changed from the medical aspect of it to the psychiatric part of it.
Okay, yeah, right.
That's a whole different world.
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
I have, my daughter they went to the doctor, this is like 40 years ago, and they couldn't figure out general practitioner couldn't figure out what was wrong with her, and sent her to a specialist, and he said, now this guy has no bedside manner, but he is where everybody sends you if they can't figure out what's wrong with you. So I felt that kind of taught me, I want them to listen and know what's going on, but I don't care if they fuss over me.
Oh, right, yeah.
Sounds
So
like
we,
Dr. House.
so we look for, we can take this into what we're talking about here. So the second sentence is, they need a clear accounting to be free and go ahead with their lives. So when we've messed up, when we've hurt someone's feelings, when we've disregarded somebody else, when we've made their experience to be a bad experience, and we've been responsible for that. We can use this example. So if somebody is in need, whether it's a scraped knee or you're looking for medical advice, so if you come into a relationship and you say, this is my problem, right? How the other person responds, they could end up giving you everything that you need in that moment, or they could give you half of what you need in that moment, or maybe they give you 10% of what you need in that moment, or maybe you make it worse. You gave them nothing, and you're worse off. So in this exchange, being aware of what's happening is important, both directions. So when we say, I have a need, the person that we're coming to, let's say they do their best, and it helps the problem a little bit, but you still feel like you have a problem. It might be easy for us to go away from that relationship disappointed and saying, I went to my dad, I went to the doctor, I went to somebody with my problem, and they didn't help. And that's very disappointing to me. And until we're able to kind of come back and share what happened in that experience and have a better understanding, we may just take away from that a sense of disappointment or anger or sadness. And so making amends gives us an opportunity to revisit these encounters and to kind of understand one another and what was happening there. Now, as far as these steps go, we're really just focusing on our own responsibility and saying, if I think back, I think I dropped the ball in this exchange with the person. Let me go back and apologize for that and say, when I go to my daughter and I say, when you came to me and you had a skinned knee and you were asking me to take care of it, I should have given you more time. And here's the kiss that I should have given you. Mwah. And I hope that everything healed okay. And I'm going to try next time when you come to me I'm going to try to give you more of me in that moment. So that would be a way to do kind of my part of it. Now, here's the other part. The other part is this, what we call open, redemptive listening. So if we look at this, this sentence here, neither side needs to accuse or defend, but just state the facts as we remember them and be open to hear what the other needed, heard, or felt. So I just gave an example of coming in and making the apology and kind of assuming how I messed up and trying to fix it. What this is saying is that we don't just do that, but we come and we say, you know, if I'm dad again and coming to daughter, I say, sweetheart, I think when you came to me the other day, I think I kind of messed up a little bit. Can you tell me what your experience was? Can you tell me how you felt? And and at that point, just stop and just listen. And let the other person describe, well, I was hoping you would have done this, or I was expecting you to do this, or when you were finished talking to me, this is how I felt. And so in that regard, that gives me an opportunity to learn and to empathize and to kind of like be more aware of the experience of this person that's important to me. And maybe then at that point, my apology could even look a little bit different. I could say like, oh my goodness, I had no idea that what I said would have that impact on you, and I'm so sorry that it did that way. You know, and at that point, I don't know if you say, you know, what can I do to make it better or whatever. That's the place where we kind of figure out. But ultimately,
thank you for sharing it with me. I'll try and do better next time.
Yeah, the important thing, like he says, is we're not trying to accuse or defend. We're not trying to necessarily. The important thing is the listening part first and foremost, and then we know where to go from there. It can be that somebody tells us, Dad, you don't need to do anything. You know, it's fine. Just you asking what my experience was, that's enough. That's all I really needed. And I love you, and I know you're busy, and you know you had a long day, and I'm sure having another person come to you with their problems is not what you had in mind when you walked in the door. But it's a chance to kind of redo what has been done and could have been done in a better way.
Well, I was thinking that this is when I was little, I said nothing. Any friends I had is because they wanted to be my friend. And so then as I tried to learn to speak up, I said things that were awful. Well, they probably weren't awful to the listener. I remember this one young man we knew had a girlfriend, he legally lied to wanted us to meet her. And then she had to leave, and he said, what'd you think of her? And I thought, well, she's really nice, but she has a really gravelly voice. And I thought, what the hell's the matter with me? And I didn't want to make a bigger deal out of hurting his feelings, because he did end up marrying her, but I get my feelings hurt now. I try to say to myself, I forgive you, because then it becomes easier to forgive myself, so I can talk to people without making it a judgmental situation.
So say that again. You say I forgive you.
Well, if somebody hurts me, I say I forgive you.
Oh, I see.
And then it's opening myself. Oh, if I hurt somebody else, it's not such a big deal.
Oh, right.
We practice this.
Yeah, apologies can be very scary. Apologies can be scary, daunting. We can dread apologies because essentially what we're doing is that we're acknowledging somebody was open to us and we messed it up. Somebody was open to us and we hurt them or we disregarded them. We could have done better. So what we're doing is we're going back and we're opening ourselves just like that person did to us. So, and then what that means is, and this is one of the reasons why this step is hard to do, is that our next thought might be, they're gonna hurt me back because I deserve it, you know. I was a jerk, and I deserve them to be a jerk to me. And so that can be a deterrent to us trying to make amends, because we know that when we go in, there's a good chance somebody is not going to be all happy and understanding, you know?
What about if you did something to somebody, but inside you, you're saying, she really did deserve it? And that can happen as well. And then you want to go and say, I'm sorry, when you're really not sorry?
Well, did you over?
What was the, what we'll have to ask ourselves is, then why would you entertain the idea of apologizing in the first place if you didn't do anything wrong?
Because you knew she was hurt and angry.
Okay. So she was hurt and angry, but she deserved to be hurt, right?
Yeah, I was just telling my son about that. You don't want to hurt people on purpose, but if someone needs to learn something,
Right.
and trying to explain it to them, and their feelings are hurt, that's just a growing thing on their part. It's not something you need to take on to yourself that you did wrong. They had to learn that for their job.
Yeah. So we've been using examples of these very simple instances where there's some hurt or disregard of the other person. But here's the challenge, is that very often, maybe more often, the relationship that we have with the person that we're going to make amends with has many, 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 many instances where there's been hurt, where we may say, I know I need to make amends to my little brother because I've been treating him bad for years, you know, and I can think of one or two things that I know that were really bad, but if I'm honest, maybe I've just been treating him bad like for a long time. So how do we make amends for that? You know, we may say, like you said, I may say, if I think of the last thing I said to my brother, he did deserve it, you know, because he was being a jerk. But we've got 10 years of back and forth, and where do I start with making amends? So that's where maybe coming in and making amends is a really complicated experience, but it might simply be acknowledging to the other person, I know we've not been getting along for a while. I know that there are many things that have been done and have been said over the years. I want to make amends with you, and I don't know where to start, but I would like to say, if there's anything you would like to say to me that I deserve to hear, could you please share with me? And can we start this process of amending our relationship, not just an experience, but our relationship? Now if we just go in with that attitude, that's gonna be a big improvement in our life. Even if the conversation becomes a train wreck, even if the conversation really doesn't produce anything, just putting ourselves into a posture of being willing to try to amend a relationship, that in itself can be beneficial. Now, we don't know what we may find when we open up that conversation. We may find that the other person really doesn't want to be friends with us. They really don't want to have a relationship with us. And we can say to the other person, I completely understand why you wouldn't want to have a relationship with me. I've broken the trust, and I don't expect you to ever speak with me again. But I do want to share with you that I'm very, very sorry. There's no way that I can repay you, but please know that that I want to acknowledge what I've done for my part in this relationship. Just doing that and saying that can be very liberating and freeing. And when we're making amends, some of these amends will turn into like a redeemed relationship where you can kind of pick up where you left off. You can kind of find the good parts again, and you can have a brand new version of your relationship with the person. In other instances, there's too much damage that's been done, and it really is going to be more beneficial for them and for you to just kind of agree to disagree and say, you know, we had some good times, we may have had even more bad times. I'm really sorry for the part that I played in that, and I really hope the best for you, and I want you to know that I'm really, really sorry. Opening up like here, opening up the other person to say what they need to say is, it gives them an opportunity. They may sit there and call you all the names in the book and tell you what a horrible person you are and bring up a bunch of things that are going to be hurtful. But if we are willing to take that on, because that is kind of the results of what we've caused, then that may help to bring some closure to the other person. And they'll have to kind of work out their end of things on their own. They may need to come and make amends to you. They may never do that.
I think that sounds very free. If
Yes.
you can be stupid sometimes
Yeah.
and say it, wow, is that
Yeah.
free?
I think the more, once you start making apologies, and like real apologies, not some fake thing or selfish thing, you know, and there are a lot of really bad types of apologies, like, you know, like I'm so sorry that you get hurt so easily.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or I'm sorry if you got offended at what I said. That's not really owning what you did. It's more like you're pointing out a fault that
I'm
that
sorry,
they have.
but look what you did.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Of course, another thing, you can't ever expect, making that apology, making that amends, that they're gonna accept it. That cannot be part of your apology or your amends, because,
Right.
you know, you may have done more damage than you can imagine.
right.
And, there's
that-
nothing you
and-
can say or
and-
do that
and-
will ever fix it.
And that part is not your responsibility.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's their responsibility. And how they handle it, by you acknowledging they have the power to do whatever they want with this information and with this heartfelt.
Yeah.
Acknowledging that they are valuable on their own, and it's like in their own time, and when they feel the need, they can react the way that they want to. That's on them, you know.
Is there any way that you can, you know two people that are not speaking together, okay?
Yes, I do.
Well, how do you get somebody to apologize or make amends? Is there any way, is there anything I'm not an outsider, I'm a mother, but anyway, I don't know how to.
It's really hard.
25 years they've barely spoken.
Yeah, it's very hard. Yeah, it's very hard. I presently have a couple people that I care very much about that are not talking to each other, and I have gotten involved and ended up kind of regretting that I did. Yeah, I've gotten involved, but what happens is it's so easy to get sucked into you being on one side or the other.
Oh, you're taking his side now, huh?
Right. And or you said what to them? You know, unless both parties are asking for us to be a mediator.
Don't be a mediator.
Then it's better not to. It's like one of the most dangerous places that a law enforcement officer can put themselves is in the middle of a domestic dispute, because Because when you try to come and get two people to fix something between the two of them and you haven't been asked to, usually you're the one that gets chewed up and spit out.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, it's hard, and sometimes we might be asked directly or indirectly to get involved, and unless both people are asking, it's really better not to, because a lot of times people are just looking for people to take their side. They're kind of building their team, they're building their argument, you know. So there's a point where maybe we listen. If somebody wants some advice, you know, let's say about fixing something, we could do that, but I'd say remain neutral as possible. And what we're doing is we're hopefully empowering the other person to take responsibility for the part that they're playing. It is hard to be on the outside of watching people, especially people you care about, not talk to each other. It's hard. We can always share our story. We can always share, you know what? We can always share our own experience. And we could say, I've been in a situation like that before, and this is what I found works for me. But it's really up to you to decide how you're gonna move forward. Yeah. And when there are people close to us, you know, if it's our kids, our siblings, our parents, it gets really hard because a lot of times we get impacted by their back and forth. You know, we may have to tell them, "Hey, you two, when you're going back and forth, leave me out of it."
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I learned something really important from the principal. He said if you have to call a student out on something, I forgot the exact words he used, but he said, try to think of 5 ways you can honestly give them a positive reinforcement. And people love to hear their own name, so all you have to say is their name. Hello, Joe.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, then something you had to say can be passed, they can accept it after a while. Sometimes we feel like we should never say anything rude, but sometimes
Right.
you have to.
Right.
Not, we don't want to be rude, but just calling someone's attention in a classroom, up here.
Maybe if there are people that have been in our lives for a long time and we've shared memories together, maybe we just bring up the good times.
Yeah.
Bring up the good memories. Remember that funny thing we did together? And just kind of leave them with some memories of the
They
good
will
stuff.
both say, if my brother ever needs anything, I'll be right there forever.
Right,
But would you ask to go to your house? No.
right.
It's
Yeah.
so like crazy.
Right. It's hard. I mean, sometimes we do have to decide as we go on through life that we stop maintaining certain relationships, you know. And it's sad, but sometimes it's too complicated. For relationships to stay alive, there has to be trust. And when trust is broken, or if there's no respect, you know, if respect is broken, it's hard to restore trust and to restore respect. I think those two things are probably more important than love, just because love requires trust and respect in order to exist, you know. And sometimes the trust gets broken and respect is out the window. So we can always go back to what Jesus said after the rich man came to him. And he told the rich man he had to sell everything and give it to the poor. And the rich man went away sad. the positive thing is that the very last thing Jesus says in that text is, with men, this is, with human beings, it's impossible for the rich person to enter the kingdom of heaven, or for the selfish person to not be selfish, or for, whatever the situation. We may say, as far as human beings go, there are certain relationships where they're impossible to amend. But he ends with this, but with God, everything is possible. So we can always hope and pray for miracles. That's, we do our best and then we pray for miracles. Yeah. Sometimes we need a miracle. Sometimes it's better not to have a miracle. Yeah. All right.
Be careful what you ask for, you might get it.
Yeah, if it's like you realize, oh, maybe I didn't need to bring that relationship back into my life.
Yeah.
Now I remember why we're not talking. Send us out in the power of your Spirit, Lord. May our lives bring Jesus to the